I don't see myself as like a shepherd of the planet. I don't think TK is going to change the world. But what I can do is I can be a good father. I can be a good husband. I can be a good manager and business owner of the people at NutraMedia and the people that work at Core Culture. I can affect their lives. I can help them prosper. I can help them, you know, I want them to be a little uncomfortable. I want to be that thing that makes them a little uncomfortable so they can learn what discomfort is, so that they can learn how to be self-reliant on themselves. So if I want to impact on the world, I just want to influence the people around me in a positive way that can help make them better and grow so that they can survive. They can learn how to survive.
The Sacred Joelist Podcast.
All right, so we're live.
We're here.
What's up, TK?
What's up, dude? It's been a minute.
I know. It's been, how long has it been?
I don't know. Maybe a couple weeks.
Couple weeks? I know, right?
A minute.
It's good to see you, man. Can you actually tell the audience who you are and what you do?
For sure. I would love to. So,
and you can just look at me when you're talking. You don't have to look at the camera.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
I mean, if you want to talk directly.
All right. Well, my name's TK. My name's Taylor. I'm an entrepreneur. I created a business called NutraMedia, and I'm one of the co-founders of Core Culture.
That's awesome. Can you tell me a little bit more about NutraMedia, how it got started?
Right.
So actually, how about this? Let's start from the beginning, because I know you have a wild story. Yeah. How did you get to where you're at right now?
Okay, so for those who don't know, owning NutraMedia is a nutraceuticals branding and marketing agency. Mm-hmm. We do branding and marketing in all types of different medias, mostly for nutraceutical brands. So energy drink companies, different types of supplement companies. We obviously have a clothing line. We're both rocking the Core Culture today. Yeah, so anything you see branding-wise, as far as like the logos, the labeling, the packaging, the social media, the advertisements, the websites, anything you really see about a brand, we work with probably over 80 national and global brands. So if you walk into any supplement store in the United States, or really for anywhere around the world for that matter, there's like a 90% chance a good portion of the branding on that wall, we've done, you know, a handful of them. So how did I get here? That's the question. So about, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, I worked for this little company. It's not a little company anymore. So if you walk into a gas station today and you go to the energy drink section, there's a drink called C4.
I know C4.
Yeah. So back in the day, that was a little bitty company of about, I don't know, 30 people in College Station, Texas. And so I was fortunate enough to be 30-something employee. I don't know. I was hired there from a buddy that I lived on his couch, like right out of college. And I was taking classes at Blinn. And I basically got a job like sweeping floors and packing boxes. So that was like my first gig into supplements. Didn't know anything, never lifted weights, didn't really do fitness. I was like a sports guy. I was an athlete, but I was never like a, you know, weightlifting guy.
And you just applied?
Yeah, my buddy I actually was like a mover. Like I worked for moving companies, and I did like trim carpentry and odds and end jobs. So I was always kind of an entrepreneur. Like I would find a way to make money. And then my buddy called me up one day. I was living in Waco. And he was like, hey, I got this job. It's for a really cool company. It's growing really fast and they're hiring. And like, I was like trying to get out of this relationship that I was in. And I was just like, you know what? I got nothing else better going on. And keep in mind, I'm like 20 years old, you know, so pretty young. You know? Yeah. So I'm 34 right now. So yeah, a little over 10 years ago. So I'm literally catching up to you, man. Yeah. I hopped into a Jeep with like a bag with some clothes in it, literally like a hefty bag. And I had a dog named Trigger. And we just like hopped in the Jeep and I drove to College Station and I literally just like showed up at his house and I was like, all right, where's this job, yo? And he was like, oh, you can like live on my couch until you get some money. And so I literally lived on his couch for a month before they actually gave me the job, because I went up to it was called Woodbolt, and the brand's called Cellucor.
Okay.
So Cellucor owns C4.
Okay.
The brand, the logo C4 used to be just a pre-workout, and they had like, I don't know, 20 or 30 different products, and C4 was just one of them.
Mm-hmm.
They still have all those products, but C4's kind of become its own
taken off.
thing.
Yeah, I
it's
see
like
C4 everywhere.
It's like its own brand now, but at the time, C4 was actually new. So I didn't know anything about any of this stuff at the time. I just wanted a job, and they gave me one. And yeah, I worked there for, I don't know, maybe almost 4 years. And in that time, it went from a little company to a really big company. But I was fortunate enough to like be in pretty close proximity to, the executives.
Mm-hmm.
So while growing with a real small company that's growing that quickly, you're in this like hyper state where everyone around you, first of all, everyone's like family. And I lived away from my family. So my job became like my life.
Your family.
And like everyone, yeah. So being in,
excuse me.
Oh, you're good.
Excuse me.
You get it all out.
There might be another one coming, but we're good for now.
So being in close proximity to executives at this level while this thing's growing so fast and sort of seeing how they operate I was just like a sponge at that age. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to have my roommate that I was living with was like the owner's little brother. And so like I got to be kind of around, the top dogs of that company and sort of see how everyone operated. I got to go to meetings and, after parties and all that fun stuff and just kind of absorbed it all. And then it grew into this really large company. And then I just decided one day that I wanted to kind of do my own thing. So I just, on a whim, I left. Actually, I wanted to like create a family. Like I wanted to get married and all that stuff. And the job I had was good, but it wasn't like a career.
Okay.
And so, I was like, I love working here and I love everyone I'm working with. But when a company grows, they stop needing to like promote from within. Mm-hmm. They start kind of going out and finding people in New York and LA and Chicago and Australia. And, they were starting to hire all the jobs that I was hoping that I would one day like work my way into, which I actually did like get promoted quite a bit, but like nothing like an executive level job. Right. And, I actually dropped out of college while working there because I was like kind of banking on, I'm going to grow with this thing. And, there was this dream that we were all going to get real rich. And that came true for a good handful of people. Mm-hmm. But I got to see that happen like in real time during my youth, and I got to be a part of it. And so, I left that job without knowing anything about graphic design, and I started learning graphic design on YouTube.
Before you continue, I literally thought that you had learned graphic design from working at Cellucor.
I started doing it, yeah. Like I started looking at YouTube stuff, and like 3 months into it, I was like, you know what, I want to do this on my own now.
That's actually wild that you learned from YouTube.
Yeah, because my job at Cellucor was I was actually like a customer service rep and an event specialist. So like I would go all over the country to like CrossFit games and the Arnold Expo. Remember we went to the Arnold Expo together?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I would
set up the booths and everything.
Yeah, so my job was to like set up the booths and like sell the product and make sure that everything, was, Gucci, everything was working good.
Yeah.
And so I got to know a lot about supplements and the supplement business through that whole season in life. And supplements were never like something I was like super passionate about. It was just like, I just thought it was kind of cool. It was like an interesting thing, biochemistry. And then I got into fitness, then you kind of put those two things together. But what was always exciting about me was the marketing part.
Right.
I always thought that was the fun one. And I always actually wanted a job in marketing, which I actually applied because they moved their headquarters, not their headquarters, but their marketing department to Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And I was like, 21, 22 at the time. I was like, hey, take me. I want to go. And they like denied my resume. And they're like, you're just like, we're hiring people in Manhattan who like went to college.
Or went to college
for marketing. And you're just like some country boy from Texas. Like, I was like, I'll show you boys. Which is kind of funny. I got a funny story about that because the guy who was the the head of the marketing department now is the CEO and owner of the brand Ghost. So C4 and Ghost now compete against each other. And if you ever go into a grocery store, you'll see a Ghost can right next to a C4 can. Yeah. The guy who owns Ghost once worked for C4, and that was going to be my boss that I applied for. Anyways, we've like squashed it, and we're like friends now.
Oh yeah. That's wild.
Yeah, but I kind of jabbed him about it one time. I was like, remember that time you didn't hire me? It's like, bet you feel dumb now.
That is very true.
Yeah, but this is like long-winded, so like 10, 12 years ago. So I quit doing that. I decided I want to be in marketing, so I was going to teach myself, first off, graphic design.
Yeah.
So I started like an Amazon business with one of the guys who worked at Cellucor. He also left the company. He got vested out, so he made a nice little chunk of money when he left. And so we went ahead and took a bunch of money, and then we bought a whole bunch of like essential oils and like salts, and then we repackaged them, and we needed a label for them. So I designed a label for them, and then we needed like pictures for them for Amazon, and then we needed like a video. So like I learned myself video editing, I learned photography, and I learned graphic design, all by trying to like figure out a way to market these essential oils and these salts on Amazon. Yeah. So I spent like a year not making any money at all, just trying to figure this out. Like I just lived off of what I had saved.
Yeah.
And then I did that until somebody called me one day really randomly in like the cannabis space in California. So like I knew some people from Cellucor. It's actually a wild story. You know the brand Avenged Sevenfold?
Which one?
Avenged Sevenfold.
I don't think so.
It's like a metal band. It's like a really big metal band.
Okay.
They're huge.
Okay, yeah, I'm not really into metal much, but
yeah, I don't expect you to be, but like if you knew, if anyone
Avenged
knows who the Avenged Sevenfold is,
I'll look it up.
Yeah, they're
Jamie. No.
They're like one of the biggest metal bands.
Jamie, look that up real quick.
In the world, like one of the biggest. And so they were taking Cellucor products, right? So they used to take it.
Okay.
We used to send them free stuff, and since I was kind of on like the street team for the events and stuff, like part of my job was to kind of like correspond with people so they can get free stuff. Like before influencers were influencers, like my job was to kind of support influencers, but they weren't called influencers then. You know what I mean?
They're artists.
Yeah, they were just popular celebrity people. This is like before TikTok, really before Instagram. Like Instagram existed, but people didn't like have a career off of being a social media person. Like they had a career, and then if you wanted to have, different like brand ambassadors is what we called them. So they were basically brand ambassadors. So I created some sort of a correspondence with their manager. Okay. Their band manager, and so. That guy knew another guy we were doing this essential oil stuff for, and he like hit him up one day, was like, hey, I've got some friends who are selling some cannabis products, like brownies and things like that with like infused with cannabis. And they're in Orange County. And he was like, I need somebody to make me some bags for some packaging for our brownies. And so he's like, oh, I got a guy. And so like he hit me up and he's like, hey, do you wanna design this bag for, like these brownies? And I was like, shit, yeah. I get paid? They're gonna pay me to do it? And he's like, yeah. So I designed a pack. It was terrible. Totally bad. Like not good at all.
You still have pictures of it?
It's buried somewhere.
If you can find it, I'll put it on the screen on the podcast.
Yeah, it might be hard, but yeah, so I got some of those.
Okay.
So that ended up like opened me up into this whole weird little subculture of cannabis brands, because this was like right when they were breaking into like their legal.
Oh, in Cali.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was like the way cannabis in California worked, at least at the time, like the way that they distribute their products, like you have to hold a special type of license. And so they would like create these kind of like super groups where like one guy had the license, but he would like pool a bunch of money for like 10 brands to operate out of that license. But they were all like different companies and different brands, all operated by different people, but they all kind of used like one guy's license. So like I got to know this one guy, and so he basically like set me up with 10 brands. And he was like, all right, you need to make stuff for 10 different brands. And I'm in Texas at the time. Like, I like cannabis like everyone else, but right. I'm not like a connoisseur, right? Like I didn't know anything about the business.
People in Cali built different.
Yeah, so it starts getting serious where they want me to go there and back to help them with their social media. So I'm like flying to San Diego like twice a month. Wow. And going, and I'm helping them do their social media and do their events and do their packaging and just anything media wise. And this is just me in like a crummy little Canon like 60D, crop sensor camera and like Photoshop on my laptop. I'm just like trying to make it work, trying to figure it out. And I'm like charging these guys like literally like $15 an hour. I'm not really making anything. I'm like breaking even. But
Are
I'm
they
like,
at least paying for your flights?
no, I was paid for my own flights.
Wow.
So yeah, I kind of like taught myself how to, that comes with where we're at now.
Yeah.
And I'll get to it. Obviously it's not $15 an hour now.
I know.
Yeah. So I like taught myself kind of the business part of being a freelancer at first. And then it became kind of too overwhelming for one person to do. But besides all that, I was starting to kind of make my name for this little cannabis space, which is kind of weird for tax reasons in Texas. They're all paying you cash. I don't really know how I'm like supposed to like report that on my taxes in Texas. So I was like, oh, well, shit, this isn't like a scalable thing. And I can't really hire a bunch of people to go work for a bunch of weed companies in California out of Texas unless I move to California. And I'm like married and, have a house with my wife and stuff. And like, she's not a part of this world at all. So she's like, that's weird. She's like, that's just a weird kind of whole thing you got going on. So I was like, yeah, but like, it's something people are paying me to do this. And she's like, yeah, it's cool that people are paying you now. Cause she supported me for like 2 years,
Wow.
Like, my wife really saw, she believed in what I was doing. And like, if there's anything I can say to anyone is like, if you have a partner in life
that believes in you,
I mean, you got someone, you know what I mean? That's special.
Yeah. I mean, there's, especially these days, it's really hard to find a woman who's willing to actually stick with you when you're at your lowest.
Yeah. And
So
she
the
was
fact
there
that
for me.
The fact that you had that,
Yeah.
and you have that now.
Well, I met her when I was at that company. And
Cellucor.
Yeah. And, it was a good job, right? In your 20s, it was a good job. And I was making my own money and had my own place. And I went to her day. I was like, this is cool, but I'm not happy. Like I told you, I want to, I told her, I was like, I want to have a family with you, but I can't ask you to marry me yet because like we don't have enough money to get a home together. We don't have enough money to have kids together.
Yeah.
It's just a weird time to be paying for all this stuff when you're in your mid-20s and you're making, $13 an hour.
Right.
So, she luckily had a good job and she was like, quit. I was like, quit? What am I supposed to do? She's like, I make money. I'll be your sugar mama, Like, she's like, I'll take care of you until you get off your feet. She's like, but do you like have a plan? And I was kind of telling her what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to create like a media company. I want to like do branding and marketing. It's like, I don't know exactly what I want to do yet. And I'm not really good at it yet, but like, I'm going to get Adobe Photoshop and I'm going to get Illustrator and I'm going to get Premiere Pro and I'm going to sit here every single day and I'm going to work at it until I'm good at it. And she's like, I believe you.
It's so crazy how these programs are so affordable.
Yeah.
And anyone can do what you just did.
Yeah. $75
but you
a month.
have to put in the effort. You have to put in the work.
Dude, I probably spent 2 years in a room by myself, just at a computer while she went to work. When she would wake up and go to work, and I would wake up and go to work. Now, I wasn't making money for it.
Yeah.
But I was still working.
You're still working.
And if she was at work 8 hours a day, I was sitting there at that desk 8 hours a day. And I did that 2 years by myself. Not talking to anyone, no friends, all the people that I had called my friends and my family, they were still doing the Cellucor thing. I'm kind of like
you're doing this on your own.
I'm cast off from the cool ship, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm just basically just doing this all by myself. It's incredibly lonely, but I really, really wanted to show her that, that I was thankful for her, seeing that in me. And so like I owed it to her to like be good at this, So,
Absolutely.
So I spent like I said, about 2.5 years really just kind of like sharpening the sword. And then I was doing that stuff in the cannabis space and it still wasn't good yet. Like keep in mind, like it was garbage. It wasn't good work. But they
Good
were
enough
willing
to
to
bring you back.
Yeah, it was because I was cheap, right? Like,
Okay.
I was dirt cheap, and I was willing to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and I did it. You know, they asked me to do things, and I did it. Was it good? I wouldn't say it was good, but like, you know, I'm kind of a dog that'll hunt. You know, you shoot that bird out there, I'm gonna go get it.
Yeah.
You know, so like that's just how I kind of treated that whole situation.
Yeah.
Until one day, a buddy of mine who was the original formulator of C4, his name's Joey Savage, he called me.
Okay.
And so he lived here in Austin for a little bit. And he had tried to launch his own brand, creating like a ketone product. And he had me do some things on it, you know, with helps with labels and some website and social media and photos and stuff. And we actually went to Vegas and won this award. It was really cool, but it was like short-lived. Nothing really happened to this brand. He couldn't raise enough money to make it like go to the next level. Excuse me. Anyways, he called me and he was like, look, I just got hired at this new place. It's a manufacturing facility that manufactures supplements. It's out of Houston, and we need someone to help us with labels because we're going to be launching like 4 full lines of supplements. And I was like, I've been out of the supplement game for like 2 years now. You know, like,
you've been working with cannabis.
Exactly. And he was like, oh no, I'll teach you everything as far as like the compliance regulatory stuff goes. We just need like someone to work with us who's creative. And I had this idea for a cannabis brand where I was going to take a bunch of like old nostalgic like 90s and 80s movie posters, and I was going to make like t-shirts out of them, the old Space Jam. And I had this idea where I was going to mix it in with the branding of this one cannabis brand. And so like I built this whole set of like apparel and t-shirts and graphic tees for them that were like, you know, one was Space Jam, one was like Kill Bill. Like there was all these different movies and things in pop culture from like the 90s and 2000s that I thought were dope.
Yeah.
And then I like kind of like cannabis-fies them. And then I showed them to the guy and he was like, what are you doing? Like, we can't sell these because like these are all like marketed to kids. I'm like, no, they're not. They're marketed to like 20 and 30-year-olds now. I'm like, right? Because kids don't really know what all these movies were.
That's so true.
And he was like, but they got like cartoons and stuff on them. And I was like, all right, well, I mean, I thought it was a banger idea, but if you don't like it, then like, whatever. You don't have to print all these shirts. I don't know. And so like that, I just had this like storage of these files of this idea, of this concept. And when my buddy Joey called me about doing these labels for these supplement companies, I went down to Houston to this guy who owned this manufacturing company that manufactures supplements. That's what I mean by manufacturing something. They take all the powders and the pills and they compound them and then they make them into consumer goods that you see on the shelves. They're like, well, what can you do? So I kind of showed them this idea of like taking these like movie themes and then like, you know, creating them as an inspiration piece for like whatever we were going to do for this product.
Right.
So they had this product called Super Greens. They didn't have a label or a look for it yet. It was just the name. They had a formula and they're like, it's going to be a greens powder. And I was like, oh, Super Greens, like that's fucking Space Jam. Like that's so Space Jam. So I went back to my lab and I made like a mock of, you know, sort of kind of looked like the Space Jam sort of logo, but I renamed it Super Greens and it sort of had the same look and vibe and colors and textures and stuff. And this is like, you're not really supposed to do this because it's like infringes on IP, but when you're like a small startup company, at least in the supplement space, like
you can kind of get away with it.
This is kind of a way that people sort of jump themselves into the front of the line is by like kind of getting people's attention. And then once you get distribution, then you start to like
narrow down.
Right. You start to rebrand and refine your brand. That's like, so like I've always known this kind of about supplements because the supplement industry is kind of like the cannabis industry where it's like the Wild West. There's not a lot of rules.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. So if you know kind of how to play the game, you can, you can like leverage yourself into cool spaces and scale really quickly. So I came back with this idea and he was like, this is cool. So we built out this entire line based off of this sort of theme. And so the brand absolutely took off. Like it, boom, it exploded. It's in GNC. It's in every shelf today. It's the #1 selling brand in GNC today.
Which brand?
It's called Glaxon.
Glaxon.
Yeah, so I designed the original branding for that brand, and it was really cool. It was like kind of like weird nostalgic spaceman theme, and we did all these wild and wacky videos and like weird shit that you see on TikTok today. like we would do all that stuff where we would just get attention by being like super polarizing, and well, it worked really well. So it was growing really fast, and I was like, I went to the owner because I'm driving like an hour and a half to the office every single day, each way. So it's like a 3-hour round trip. So I'm like, hey man, like I've kind of invested a lot of time into this.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm a big part of it because like we literally started it from just an idea, me, you, and this other guy, Joey.
Yeah.
We started this as an idea. I'm like, but you own the company and I'm only getting paid this much. And like, let's just like go in together. And here's the thing, like he owned a manufacturing company, right? Like, so he's bringing in business manufacturing products for all different types of brands, not just his own Glaxon. And so people start coming to him to try and get like to replicate sort of the success we've seen. So he's kind of like selling a lot more business on the work that me and this guy Joey did, which is fine. Like that's what we want to do. We want to see the company grow.
Right.
So I was super happy to do that, but I was like, hey man, if we're going to be trading off our name, we should have a little bit of buy-in. And he was just like, nah.
Just straight up no.
Yeah, he was like, no, I got, we've got other plans for how I want to do this, which is fine. Me and this guy are cool now, by the way. He's like a good friend.
Okay.
And I understand why that was the decision he made, but it didn't work for me for where I was at in my life because I was starting to get a sort of a reputation for it.
Okay.
Right? So people start calling me and saying, TK, can you make us a label for this? Can you make us a label for this? But I'm contracted by this guy, so I can't technically do any other work without kind of breaking him in on it. But see, when he brings in a manufacturing deal, I may get paid, $1,000, $2,000, whatever. He makes a $70,000, $80,000 PO. You know what I mean? There's a big discrepancy between, you know what I mean? When you're manufacturing, yes, because manufacturing is very lucrative. Absolutely. It's also very expensive too. So like I understand it now. To
get started.
Yeah. It costs a lot of money. But so I get kind of popular in this weird world of supplements because this brand gets super popular. So I created this, I said, you know what? I'm going to go and do this on my own. And he was like, whatever, dude. He's like, I already got the distribution. I can go and hire somebody to just do the labels from now on because like it already has a look, which they did. And that person really did a great job of taking the brand on into the next level. But I stepped back and said, let's start my own media company now. So that's when I got in touch with the people who we launched Core Culture with.
Right.
So right when I kind of left that job, I kind of became like a hot ticket item for a lot of people trying to hire me. And I was like, I don't want to be hired. I want to create an agency.
You were tired of building other brands up. Exactly.
I felt like I'd helped make a few millionaires, and I was like, I want to be one. It's only fair.
Absolutely.
I'm not stupid. I kind of understand. I mean, I'm not the brightest person in the world, but I'm talented enough to know, where my strengths are. And I know my talents. That's
you're pretty smart, TK.
I wouldn't. Don't give me that credit.
You're pretty smart. Watch this man talk about labels, and goes over my head for sure.
Whatever, it's fine. You know a lot about video that I don't know.
Yeah, I guess to each their own, right?
Yeah. I mean, so like you follow your passion and you're really good at it, right?
I'm decent.
Yeah. So I just kind of follow mine, and I just know where my strengths and my weaknesses are.
Right.
Yeah. So
you met up. So you ended up meeting the people that.
So Core Culture is owned by another manufacturing company. So it's technically a competitor of this other place that I worked for. They're both in Texas. And this was a newer one. They just kind of started up. They just built their facility at Verticore. And I walk in, kind of tell them the story I just told you. I was like, this is what I've done.
This is what happened.
Like since I was 20 years old, my whole life has kind of awkwardly been about supplements. And this is where I'm at now. And for whatever reason, I've been a part of a lot of success, but yet like myself don't feel like I've made it. Like I've been on a bunch of winning teams. I've seen the bottom of the mountain scale to like $100 million companies and been a part of it, a critical part of it. But yet myself, like I've never been in the position to be like, the boss guy. I've never been the owner or an executive or...
They've replaced you.
I've always been replaced, or I worked myself out of a job, or there's always someone else that's, before me, seniority or whatever. For whatever reason, life happens and it's serendipitous. But when I was in that room with them, I told them that same story that I told you. And they're like, well, TK, how can we help you?
they're like, well, you got some things that that could help us because we have clients that need your talents, and we've got things that we want to do. They were talking about core culture. They're like, we want to do our own brand too. And I was like, well, guys, look, this is cool and all, but like, I don't want to jump into bed with anything unless like I got some skin in the game. And they're like, well, just okay. Just okay. We're like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to launch this brand. If you want to be a part of it, be a part of it. And I was like, all right, well, I want to start a media company and do this for a lot of brands. And they're like, great. They're like, we could send you on business. I was like, okay. So as long as you're okay with me not conflicting, doing mass, and taking on customers that may potentially be your competitors, like we can launch this brand core culture together. And they're like, we support you, man. Like we see your vision. We want to see core culture win. So we ended up doing this deal where I could own a part of core culture and still focus on NutraMedia. And they were going to help us out with core culture by basically providing us for NutraMedia is basically like core client to start. What I mean, like they're like, you're going to give us enough billings to start off so I can go and hire people and get an office and stuff and kind of get started, which they did. And so we, essentially core culture paid NutraMedia in order to do all of the media work for it.
Right.
That's essentially how it worked out. And since then, both brands, all three of them, very core, NutraMedia and core culture, have all just kind of grown into their own things. Just grow because we've been at it about 3 years now. And today we have like over 80 clients at NutraMedia, which are different brands. Like I said, if you go into any GNC, you'll see our work. If you go to any vitamin shop, you'll see our work. If you walk into Walmart, you'll see our work.
HEB?
The black's on an HEB. So my logo is technically HEB, but all the logos have been refreshed since I was there. But if you walk into HEB, yeah, the Glaxon logo, I designed it. So technically I'm an HEB. I can't really take that win because, somebody else did, kind of got them into HEB. I didn't help with that part. As a designer, that's what gives me pride, is seeing my work live on in places I can literally walk into. Like, that's cool to me. And then also seeing it being enjoyed by people like on the other side of the planet, it's pretty cool too.
Really?
Yeah, like when you're, sometimes you'll see like influencers and people like unboxing, influencer kits that we designed like in Australia or in China. Today we have clients in Poland, we have clients in Dubai, Australia, Russia, South America, Canada. I mean, they're all over the world now.
It's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Your journey has been crazy, and one thing that stuck out to me is the fact that you said your wife now, but your girlfriend back then, literally trusted you enough to support you until you got to the point you're at now.
Yeah, man, she put up with him for sure.
Speaking of putting up with you, so, especially these days, a lot of women actually want to, of course, there's a wave of women who really want to work and have their own, but a lot of women want to be with a guy who's successful.
Yeah.
How is it juggling a family and juggling a big business like NutraMedia? What is that like?
First of all, like any business owner knows this. There's a couple things. First of all, you never ever forget about the multiple mouths. Like it weighs on you never. And what I mean by that is we only have 11 people at NutraMedia. It's not a big business. Like it's not even close to what my vision is for. Like I envision offices and places all around the world staffed with multiple people. That's how I see it. We only have 11 people right now, but those 11 people all have wives or husbands or significant others if they're not married yet. Some of them have kids. Some of them have dogs and pets. All of those mouths are being fed to what we're able to bring through NutraMedia. And our staff's all young. They're all college students. They're all college grads. So that never leaves you at any moment. That you're responsible for them paying their bills. So you have to bring in business so that you can make sure that everyone's paid. And that's heavy. And it's very stressful. It's fun. Don't get me wrong, it's fun. We have a lot of fun, but it's also very stressful. And so it's almost like they become a part of your family too. And then you got your family, your home life. But you don't ever get to turn it off.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So
I know that feeling.
And I was having a conversation with one of our, team members the other day. I was like, look, man, it may look all cool from from your perspective looking at me. Yeah, we get to go to all these places and spend all this money and like, it ain't no thing, right? Like, whatever we want, we got it. But at the end of the day, you can go home. You can forget about all this. You can. You don't have to take it on with you. Like, it never leaves me. It's there it's while I sleep. I dream about it. It's when I wake up. It's every second of every moment I'm worrying about, not just worrying, but like I have to be hyper focused on every little thing that's happening across the entire gamut of the business. So I got to know, what the clients want, what they need, who's paid, who hasn't paid, who owes money, how we're leveraging incoming finances and outbound so they can pay other people, and then making sure all the work is good, the critical part about the work being good. So there's just a lot to manage, and you get kind of jaded. You get so addicted to living at that speed that you don't know how to live at any other speed. It's like vacationing, like you go places
And
you travel.
Yeah.
You enjoy yourself.
So it's, of course I enjoy myself, but I travel a lot for work. And as much, anyone who's in the space that I'm in who travels for work, as much as great as it looks, just like you just said, it's not the same as a vacation.
Well, I've done what you do with the camera gear. Like that's what I used to, that was my job with the cannabis stuff to a degree, where you have to account for all your gear, account for all the shots, account for how that's going to post edit. And then you have to do this in some weird timeline. And then you got to figure about how am I going to pay for all this and then still make some money at the end of it.
Absolutely. And then not to mention, if depending on what country you're in, you might be in a country where it might not be as safe and you're walking around with
completely complicates the whole
thousands of dollars worth of gear at all times. It's just
sketchy.
It can be sketchy at times. So it looks great. And like I said, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But it's now like a vacation.
Yeah. But you're also kind of addicted to that shit.
I'm addicted to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it.
Same. Yeah.
Love it.
So the selling the world's really weird. Like I was saying, like it's really fast and it's really aggressive and it's really competitive and the rules are loose and they're gray and they kind of go into these spectrums of like,
I've heard,
so like what you think is in these things kind of gets misconstrued, like the kind of deeper you go back into the game, the more what kind of how messed up it kind of is. And then you try and find ways to like be light in that, right? You try and do things all the moral way, which most people do. Most people are good. But like when it comes to like making money, there's cheat codes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I know a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's like any business, like really anything. There's like, I don't want to say corruption, but there's a spectrum in which like you kind of dip in and out of like, breaking the rules and bending the rules and things like that.
Is it because it's not regulated enough?
Loosely regulated. It's not regulated by the FDA, but it is watched after by the FDA. And there are some, I don't want to say regulatory bodies. There are some like regulation publishings, like on how you should operate, especially at a manufacturing level. And there's some sort of on a packaging and marketing compliance way, which we do on our side. It's kind of technical and like how we design labels and ones that are compliant. But there's also a whole B side where, if somebody's selling something in a place like Walmart, they need to be pretty damn compliant because, they're making a lot more money. So there's a lot more liability. There's a lot more people taking in unless Walmart has their liability. So they're going to make sure that that's a really legitimate product.
That's kind of where I wanted to take this.
Yeah, so if you're like in a national retailer, any national retailer that is a big box store and that's buying millions and millions of a product, they're gonna put their ducks in a row. They have all these compliance and legal that before you even get approved to sell in there, you have to meet these parameters. That's not the same for Joe's supplement store that you can go down the corner and get. That's completely different game. And that game is wild. But you can get some pretty cool shit at those stores too, though. Like, you want to get real big and real skinny, you can go there and get stuff like that. And it, on a biochemistry level, it works. Like, there's science that proves that it works, but that doesn't necessarily mean the FDA is like,
well, there could be side effects.
Cool with it. Maybe not. Sometimes the FDA just doesn't know, so they just don't know. So they don't really have a regulation on it. You need a regulation on it. Some of the retailers might deem that too risky, and they'll just be like, no, we don't want you to put that in your product. There's some ingredients that are actually really, really good for people that are just basically B vitamins that are getting banned by the FDA right now.
Really?
Yeah, and they're really, really very good for you.
Why would they ban them if they're good for you?
There's a lot of lobbying from pharmaceutical companies.
That's actually messed up.
Yeah, that's how it works. That's what I'm saying. There's a spectrum, and shit gets kind of weird and corrupted.
Are you saying because it intrudes on their profits? What are these vitamins used for?
So what I'm talking about specifically is a B vitamin. It's called inulin. It's called coveted mononucleotide. I shouldn't.
I'm not even trying to say that.
And so there's a doctor, I think, at Stanford or at MIT. His name's David Sinclair. And he published a paper. He was actually on Joe Rogan's podcast a couple of years ago. He published a paper about this ingredient, this one, also another one called metformin, in which actually slow down the degradation of cells. So there's an ingredient that you can take that's an over-the-counter dietary supplement that's known to slow down the degradation of cells.
So anti-aging.
Yes. Anti-aging, anti-cancer, anything that has degradation of cells, which is literally what aging is. So it slows this down tremendously over time, as long as you saturate your blood and keep on taking it. Okay. And for the past couple of years, it's been an over-the-counter supplement. Really, really luxuriously expensive one, might I add. It's expensive as shit.
Really?
Yeah, it's like $30-something thousand a kilo. So to break that down into, several products, and then you add a markup into them, usually you'll find these products around, $60 to $90 range per bottle.
Per bottle.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's more of a high-end luxury one, and you don't feel it. You don't take it and I feel younger. It's not really how it works.
The science behind it.
Yes. So, and then it's new science. That's also a thing, is it's new science. So, or relatively new in the larger spectrum of science.
Okay.
So, this particular ingredient, it's from a B vitamin. So it's basically it's naturally sourced. It's probably synthesized in the lab to create it, but it comes from organic means in which we understand. Most people can understand. Mm-hmm. It isn't in any prescription drugs, but the issue is it kind of it carves into the market share of what pharmaceutical companies maybe are already trying to prevent with some of sort of their preventive drugs, right? Mm-hmm. And they like intimate. They might want to use it. But if it's a supplement, everyone can use it, everyone can buy it. So making it into a prescription drug would make it a lot more exclusive that you can raise the price on. So basically they've been lobbying for the past year, prescription companies in Washington, to ban the use of inulin as a dietary supplement. Basically declassify it as a dietary supplement and classify it as
prescription.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then once it's a drug, then they can market it as a prescription. And then it kind of takes it out of the hands of all of the supplementers. But this happens with a lot of
access.
Right, exactly. So this happens all the time. This is just kind of the hot beat one that's happening right now. It just happened to be that it's a pretty damn cool ingredient.
Yeah.
And right now it's hotter than a rocket. People are buying it up because they know, people who know about this know that it's only going to be available for so long.
They are going to ban it.
Oh, it's in process right now, but anyone who's selling them right now is selling a lot. So it's this happens.
How do you stop something like this?
Well, there's petitions. There's a lot. There is a committee, and there's people that like I'm involved in the supplements. I'm pretty involved with the supplement industry right now. I know this is going to sound weird, but I'm kind of like a strange little celebrity in this world. It's a small little world.
Okay.
But like, if anyone makes supplements, like they know that they need to come to NutraMedia to make their label at this point, because we have connections with all this distribution and all these manufacturers and all the places where you get your bottles and where you get your labels. We know where all that's sourced at. We know the pricing, we know the process. So we're kind of like this little brokerage consultancy that kind of turnkeys this stuff for people who don't know how to do this stuff. So I've gotten in with a lot of the movers and shakers who also like the publishers. There's influencers in this world that like are journalists, for example, and they write on the behalf of these brands, and they write on the behalf of whatever's going on in the news as far as compliance, regulatory and such. And so I've gotten to know these people, and they have formed their own little committees now where they're basically influencers. They go to Washington and they create their own content about like, hey, we're fighting the good fight, and they create a petition and they get everyone to sign it and stuff like that, and they start to rally different politicians, really. So they're getting these politicians together and creating awareness with them, saying, hey, this is bad, and if it's savvy to like whatever political team they're on, obviously they want to jump on it so they can have something to attack. But there's always the counter of like the other political team who's like, well, we're with pharma, So then it's all like that.
It's just crazy to me how they will even be able to ban something like this if it's good for you. Who's voting on this?
Politicians. Yeah, they based off of whatever their constituents.
Are they trying to? Is pharma trying to convince politicians that it's not safe for people to take over the counter?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's pharma. They have ways of convincing. That's what lobbying is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they might go to their team and say, hey, like, this is problematic. You need to shut it down. And we'll say, all right, gotcha, fam. Right. Well, yeah, they'll make up whatever they need to.
Whoever pays them the most. Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's just like, he said, she said. The point of the matter is this is like a subject that most people don't know about. It's not like a hot ticket, like, social issue. It's just one of those things about like business economics where it's like there's team A and there's team B. There's the world of supplements and there's the world of pharma. And those two worlds have always been in conflict because there's a lot of things you could beat with nutrition, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like if you give somebody the right, give somebody the right information about nutrition, dieting, exercise, supplementation, they can, better themselves and create a healthier life. So,
I think preventative care is the best care.
Exactly. There's a real...
Obviously, pharma has its place.
Right.
There's a lot of sickness you can cure before it happens.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
And, well, obviously, pharma doesn't want you knowing that. You know what I mean? It's not really good for their bottom line.
Yes.
Oh, we can get all kind of weird conspiracy stuff about, like, how they have their own motives. But, like, at the end of the day, it's just simple economics, right? Absolutely. So you have these two sort of competing industries, and they both provide somewhat similar products with somewhat similar solutions. One is considered as
less profit.
Well, they're both trying to maximize. The one's considered like really legitimate, and the other one's considered like this sort of like pseudo thing. Yeah, pseudo. But there's actually a lot of science in the supplement side that is actually like. I mean, I guess I can get really weird on this, but like, yeah, I mean, like the people that I work with are like pretty freaking smart biochemists that know a lot of stuff about this. They just choose this. They choose supplements because they believe in them more than pharma. Because the world of pharma is like bought and sold by politicians and universities, and like there's a lot of public money involved. Whereas the supplement industry is one like the drug dealers of the world. They're all entrepreneurs that like dropped out of college and were like got into usually bodybuilding or some sort of like physical sport where they wanted to test those things on themselves. And then they found out that they can find and make different compounds that can really actually increase like their athletic performance or all these other different ways of longevity. And you see subcategories that now exist today. But like this is like a real like open source type of way of using science in order to learn things about things that come from the earth. Whereas pharma is like trying to, like closed source, they publish their studies and stuff, some of them, but some of them they keep in for their own IP, you know, and then they find a way to package it and market it. And then, you know, there's only like one way to get pharmaceutical drugs in the United States, right? It's like through this, you know, through medicine. You know, get a prescription, got to get it through a doctor. And so there's this like way of distribution that's like heavily controlled, whereas supplements, you can go to any store and buy it.
Right.
So there's two different means of distribution. And pharma wants to control theirs, and where like supplements are like, we want it to be open. People find all different kinds of creative ways to distribute supplements. And that's a part of what we do at NutraMedia, is trying to find, well, what's your means of distribution? How do we like find a way to market that? Sometimes it's influencers.
Right.
Sometimes it's creating a website, creating an ad flow, and sourcing an audience, and then creating offers through advertisements. Sometimes it's straight through retail. Like I said, a lot of our brands are at retail.
Yeah.
So that is a completely different distribution model. And sometimes they do all three if you're an omni brand. But usually you start in one of those places.
Right.
If you're going to start any kind of brand or any kind of company, sell a thing, consume a packaged good, you should probably know like what your distribution model is. If you're going to sell, like if you're going to sell shirts, for example, how would you do it?
E-commerce.
Yeah. And you're an influencer. Absolutely. Have an audience. So like you have a means in order where you know that like if you bought so much of something, you could be pretty guaranteed that at least like a certain percentage of people who have been following you and want to support you will do so.
Absolutely.
You know, that's a very strong, like if you go to a banker and you said, hey, I have this much money, and I know if I invest in here, I can expect a return of this much money. A banker goes, that's a good deal. Mm-hmm. So like that, you know, that's a reasonable business plan right there. But not everybody has that. Not everybody has the secret. So they got to figure out another way to sell their thing. And sometimes, you know, it's like, hey, I know a guy who owns a store. Or sometimes it's, hey, I know a guy who's an influencer who I can pay him or a group of people to do it. And sometimes it's like somebody just knows how to do ads really well, and they can create a really good ad set, a really good ad funnel, and that's another way to scale. So you see those with, you know, a lot of supplement brands, right? If you get like ads on Facebook and stuff like that, usually they're ad-based brands, just completely different distribution model.
You have a complicated life, man.
Yeah, sorry if I kind of went on a tangent there, guys.
No,
like,
it's all good. Actually, I want to take this to, I actually want to take this back to core.
Mm-hmm.
So you've talked about how the supplement industry is the wild, wild west. And obviously the people who are even watching this, a lot of them know that I am heavily involved in core on the influencer side. And one of the main reasons is because I've met the owners, I've met you, I've seen everybody's heart. Like everybody is in this for the right reason. They want to put out things clothing that they would wear and supplements that they would take.
Right.
How's core different from other supplement brands? How's core culture different?
There's a few ways. First of all, we don't try and target like an ultra competitive or performance-based consumer. Like we're trying to make supplements that improve the lives of anyone and everyone. Mm-hmm. It's kind of difficult because in the world of marketing, the saying goes, if you're marketing to everyone, you're marketing to no one. That's like marketing 101. So we're kind of like shooting ourselves in the foot there, but we're doing it sort of valiantly because we're trying to be very open and transparent about the stuff that we make, the products that we make and we offer to people. And we're trying to make things that have a very wide like health set. Like pretty much anyone can take them and find benefit from them. Mm-hmm. You know, anyone can implement these products in their lives, and we're not going to over embellish them, and we're going to say a bunch of over-inflammatory things about what they do. We're going to try and educate people on what we know that they do, and then we're going to try and create the most pure and transparent and high-quality version of that. So if we source things like our collagen, we want it to be the best collagen that we can find. We'll pay more for it, and we do. Mm-hmm. So that we can say things like we know it's grass-fed, so we know it's non-GMO, so we know that it's organic. Now, a lot of people can say that. You can put a lot of things on a label. But like I said, some of this stuff isn't always policed, right? So you kind of have to police yourself through documentation protocol. And that's kind of where the manufacturing side comes in, where the guys at Veridicore, since they own the manufacturing facility, they can control all the quality and the transparency on their end. which is they have a certain rating. It's actually a certification called NSF. And in the world of supplements, NSF is kind of like the premier, most legitimate certification you can get. It's very arduous to get. It costs a lot of money to retain. And to keep it, you have to really walk a very straight line, and you can't bend and break any rules because you are actually paying a boatload of money, a metric ton load of money for those people to come and audit you and basically slap you on the hand when you mess up. So that you can retain that certification. Now, most of the manufacturing facilities in the United States don't have an NSF rating because it's cost a lot of money. And what's the point if most people don't know or care? So there's a lot of places that'll just make anything for anybody. And whether we know what's in that bottle or not, there's really no way of knowing other than taking it and somebody saying, oh, this feels like it's working for me, right?
Yeah. I mean, what you just said, no one knows.
Well, yeah, like I can tell you, it gets weird, sort of, if you know how the whole spectrum works. But when you have an NSF rating, you can't break the rule because you're literally paying somebody to come and basically
audit you. Yeah.
Yeah, and they do it several times a year in order to have that little stamp to say that they're an NSF facility. So Core Culture has made it all those there. So by documentation, SOP protocol, I know it's like sounds like a big word, but like by their business practices, they have to like toe a very fine line of documentation protocol that guarantees what they buy, what they put into their products, the weights, the values, how they store it, how the facility operates as far as cleanliness, and then also the documentation control of like how much came in, how much went out, and making sure everything is like completely sound packed, where there was no fudgery going on, where somebody may have, sprinkled a little of this or maybe not put a little of that. You know what I mean? You can't do that with this type of documentation protocol because they actually come and audit it. So that creates this like level of transparency where the consumer, if they understand like how this works, they can be pretty well comforted in the fact that they know that they're getting a legitimate product. So, like I said, bigger companies that sell their products in large retailers, usually the larger retailers will look for that. They want to see brands that have
the NSF certification.
Yeah, and then you have to provide all the documents for that, which is not easy. Like you got to go back all the way to wherever it's sourced from, and you got to go from these companies that source these raw materials, and you have to get them to provide all the documents. And some of these where they're made at farms in like other countries, you know what I mean? Like, and they're synthesized in labs, and like sometimes, and a lot of times, like
there's just extra stuff in there.
Or they just don't really provide a good document. Like there's no certificate. There's supposed to be a certificate of analysis. So like, but like in a lot of supplements that go out into the vast marketplace of all these brands that you see from people like advertising things online, like you don't really know where they're made at. And for all you know, they're being made from somewhere that's sourcing from ingredient where they don't really know what that ingredient is. It's not like they're doing a test on it because it costs a lot of money to test it. So they're just going to say, oh yeah, we bought this much whatever amino acid and this much creatine and this much caffeine and we're going to put it on here. But did anyone actually go and say, is this actually creatine? Is this actually caffeine? It's all just white powder, right? So,
but Core Culture does that.
Core Culture, by its documentation standard, has to do it. Like we literally can't break the rules even if we wanted to. Yeah. Not that we want to, but that's why we set those standards up in the first place. So that's just like the behind the scenes thing. But the products themselves are actually incredibly luxurious. Like we go and find the best ingredients that we can find because of this, because we have to get the documentation for them. They have to come with them. And then the people that we do business with usually have to meet our standards of morals. Like we want to know that where we're buying our ashwagandha from is like the company that's sourcing this ashwagandha and producing it, are they good people? Are they doing good business worldwide where they're not like committing human crimes and they're not cutting corners and they're not trying to, create, nefarious products and ingredients and things like that? Are they using pesticides and stuff like that? We're trying to find out to make sure if they're creating the most honest product, raw material that we can get. And then we also want the highest standardized version of that. So we want like basically the most premium one. So in the world of supplements, there's things called standardizations.
Okay.
So an ashwagandha from, one that you go and buy at Walgreens that says ashwagandha is completely different from the Shodan ashwagandha we put on our Focus nootropic.
You know what's crazy that you said that? I bought some from Walmart. So tell me, what's the difference?
Ashwagandha, the active compound in ashwagandha is called withanolides somnifera. We call them withanolides.
Okay.
So withanolides essentially lower your cortisol. Your cortisol is your hormone that peaks when you get hungry and hangry, right? It's your fight or flight hormone. It's good that you have it. You should have cortisol, but you usually want to keep it kind of level.
Right.
So like when you get hungry, it spikes. When you lift a lot of weights, when your CNS and your central nervous system goes up, it spikes. When your blood pressure goes up, it spikes. When somebody points a gun at you, it spikes.
Unless you're cold blooded like me.
For sure. Yeah, you keep that cortisol low, Sacred. You've been taking the Focus. See, that's why.
That's exactly why.
So you want this thing called withanolide. So you want this thing called withanolides, right? That's the active compound in ashwagandha. Okay. Ashwagandha comes from a root. When you ground it up, if you just grind it up and put it into a capsule, into a powder from a root, you don't know how much withanolides are actually in that. You just know that there are some withanolides in it because there's withanolides in ashwagandha root. We take standardizations from them. So basically what we do is they extract the parts of the ashwagandha root that have the highest amount of withanolides on them, and then they basically isolate them, and then they test them to a one-to-one to know, like, okay, if this is 1% withanolide, and then they test it to compare it to see like what this one is. So it's kind of like the Snickle Fritz. The ones that you buy from Walmart is only really known to have between 1 to 3%. But they don't actually test it, so they don't know. But it's probably less than 3% withanolide content. That's what I'm saying. Shodan ashwagandha is a trademarked version of ashwagandha in which they test them from that extraction, and they're known with every batch to have 33% withanolides. So it's literally 33% more effective.
Wow. We got some good products.
Yeah, it's like the Ferrari of ashwagandha. It's really expensive. But like we don't do that with just our ashwagandha. We do that with every
single ingredient.
Yeah, so that's why people may say, well, core culture stuff's expensive. Well, it's a lot better of ingredients.
Yeah.
It's like if you go to, you can go to a place and buy, a skirt steak, or you can go to, like some expensive steakhouse and get like a really nice steak, a really nice filet mignon. Like, we're making sure that this we're making sure that this is the prime of the prime.
I've been trying to tell my people that it works.
Yeah.
Listen, I will keep promoting it because these products work, especially Focus.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
That is literally my favorite. And the protein's amazing too. But
yeah, so like our protein, it's if you look on the back of a label, usually you look at the other ingredients section. So you'll see the nutritional or supplement facts panel, but look down where it says other ingredients.
Okay.
If you see things like a bunch of acetylene potassium, sucralose, maltodextrin, silica, and then other like colorings, colors, and then natural and artificial flavors, that's a good indicator that there's a lot of like artificial things that are going inside that product. And the more other ingredients, that means the more that they're cutting the actual protein with these things in order to basically fill up the volume of the tub to make you feel like you're getting more. So he's like, hey, we have a 50 serving tub or whatever, and it's 32 gram scoop, and it's 22 grams of protein. Like sometimes they amino spike them. Like sometimes they lie about the protein content and they basically spike them with a bunch of aminos instead, which aminos are the building blocks of proteins, but they don't make the same change as like actual whole protein does. So they use that as a way to fill more powder in order to make it seem like you're getting a better product, but they can sell it for cheaper because technically it isn't. It's not as superior. But if you go and look at core cultures, there's only 5 ingredients. There's not, I've never seen, we make protein labels for over 80 brands.
Mm-hmm.
We probably make over 200 labels at any given time right now. NutraMedia is probably making over 200 labels for different companies across the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen one protein label that's had less than 5 ingredients or even close to 5 ingredients on the protein. That means we're giving you more protein, which is the thing you're buying, and less of the other stuff. And it still tastes good, which is pretty phenomenal. And it's naturally sweetened and flavored. It's actually flavored with real cocoa powder, like chocolates. Flavored with real cocoa powder.
That's crazy. It seems like, so either you pay for a good quality product or you're going to pay for it in the long run with a bad quality product. You're going to have to buy, so if something says it has 30 grams of protein and it's filler, maybe it only has 15, I don't know. It's not going to be as effective, and you're still going to end up paying more or the same that you would have paid if you would have bought the quality product.
Right. You're getting like a more denser, it's actually not more dense because it's an isolate, but you're getting more protein. You're getting more of the thing that you're going to buy for.
Yeah.
So that's what I say when we're really transparent and we make I don't want to say simple products, but the idea is simple. It's like, let's just make something that's not super over-engineered, but it's like, you understand what protein is.
Yeah.
Let's make it as honest as we can make it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all there really is to it. And you'd think people would think that's like a wild statement to make, thinking why does it, that's what everyone does. But I'm telling you.
Yeah.
No, they don't. I know they don't. But we actually go out of our way and spend more money to do it. And it costs more money. And we don't make as much money as the other people do.
Yeah.
But we just believe in doing that. So that's why we're blessed that we can. So we do.
That's amazing. That's why I always support core culture.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit boring. It sounds a little bit boring, but I think that's what we need.
I don't think it's that boring. If you believe in good high quality stuff, I like nice stuff. Like this.
Well,
these clothes they cost a lot of money to make. You go to our website, people are gonna be like, man, it's a pretty high price point. It's up there with Lululemon and stuff. Yeah. These cost more than Lululemon to make. We pay more than what Lululemon pays to make these than what Lululemon pays to make their clothes. Because we care about the quality. We care about where it comes from and who we do business. All those things matter because you can easily cut a corner somewhere when doing business, especially internationally, with people who, they may not have the same values that you have. And they may be okay with, all kinds of weird shit, employing children or having crazy hours or underpaying people or not using quality, ingredients and materials and stuff like that. We have to go and vet that stuff out of people first. And you'd be surprised, especially when doing business overseas with other countries, their rules are different. Their value systems are different. So to them, it's no, this is how we do it. And this is how we keep it cheap. And we're well, we don't want it that way.
I didn't know y'all even went to that amount of detail, even with the clothing. That's
the clothes are 100% proprietary. We went and we made these fabrics. We picked out the fabrics. We had them constructed on rolls of fabric, and then they had to go get dyed. So we actually had to pick the dye that actually colored them, and then they had to get sent back and then cut into the shapes that we have, which are completely proprietary too. They were designed by a designer that designs and tailors clothes. So these looks, these colors, these fabrics are completely, you can't go on Alibaba and buy them.
Oh yeah, absolutely not.
Where, that's a lot of people have that business model, and that's fine. It's a fine business model if you can go on Alibaba and you can buy 144 units for $3 a piece, and then you can put whatever logo you want. Gymshark, that's how they started. Alpha Elite, any of these big name, fitness brands you see today, that's kind of how they did it. But this is really the Nike, Under Armour, Lululemon model. This is completely proprietary. No one else can own these looks. That we own them. We own the IP on them, and we don't own the supply chain or the manufacturing of them. But it is set up for us exclusively, if that makes sense.
So what made you guys decide to do it that way? Because I know it's extremely expensive.
It's insanely, it's mind-numbingly expensive to do it that way, and this is why most people don't do it, obviously. But really, when we set out to do core culture, when we did our trademark and all that, it was apparent to us that like in order to protect our intellectual property of the brand of core culture, like everything has to be completely proprietary. That or you open yourself up to other people, either suing you or copying you and counterfeiting you and things like that. So our vision for core culture has always been massive. We were like, we want to be this global brand and it's going to take us a long time to get there. But if we invest in the things early on and try and do things right early on, it's not going to be super problematic when you're a big brand. Because, when you sort of own your own look, you own it. You're not competing with anybody else for it. Ultimately, if we just white labeled all of our t-shirts and all that stuff and our shorts, if we just white labeled all that stuff from like Alibaba, there's a high probability that there's, 100 other brands in the US that are selling essentially the same thing we're selling, it just has a different logo on it. But we don't want that. We want to say that, this is our look and we want to be able to protect that IP.
What's the story behind the logo?
The logo is a double Enzo.
Okay.
So there's really no such thing as a double Enzo. We just kind of made up the double Enzo part. But an Enzo circle in Japanese culture it's a practice of art. So if you've ever seen when they do calligraphy art, they have those special brushes and ink. And so Enzo is basically the practice of trying to create a perfect circle. And you do it in one swish. So it's like a flick of the wrist. And this is an ancient Japanese, it's almost like meditation. They use it as a form of meditation to try and create perfection, but that's impossible. And they realize that. So it's about trying to create perfection, but finding yourself in the creation process of doing that. Understanding it'll never be perfect, but you're always a work in process. And that in itself is art. It's all about the process. And that's what the Enzo circle is. So we just made 2 Enzo circles. So it's a double Enzo circle. One inside the other. We like the way it looked.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah, and there's other Enzo circle type of logos out there. So we needed to have one that was unique.
This episode may not be for everybody.
Yeah.
Like it kind of goes really deep into the supplement industry. Not everybody's into that world, but some people. You have a lot of good things to say about it that
people probably don't understand. Yeah,
absolutely not. But
yeah, it's weird.
I mean, it's kind of like the more plates, more dates guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, for sure. Gorilla Mind.
Yeah. He kind of goes pretty detailed in this stuff, and but there's a market for it clearly.
Yeah. Like I said, in the world of supplements, when I go on podcasts and talk about this story, people are really into it.
Yeah.
Because they kind of get what I'm talking about. And it's weird. I'll get DMs from random dudes saying how I inspired them to become graphic designers.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the people that worked for us now, he inspired to be a graphic designer. Now he works for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone who looks up to you, who sees what you've done and who does aspire to be a graphic designer? What kind of tips would you give that type of person?
Well, there's probably 2 main things. So one is you have to be incredibly resilient of person. You're going to lose, you're going to fail a lot. You just got to get really comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because loss is a part of winning. If you're ever going to succeed in anything, you're just going to have to get used to sucking at it and being a punching bag. And the second part is just having curiosity. Just being curious to learn more, curious to know more. You can't always look at yourself from an outside perspective looking in and think about how people judge you. Who cares? Throw that shit away. Do what you want to do. You're worth something if you believe in it. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what means you come from in life, what your figure is or anything like that. If you have a vision to do something and you have a propensity to learn how to be really good at it, and you have the resiliency to take the hits and the L's and to keep at it and be persistent, you have the discipline to continue to do it every single day, and you remain curious and creative, like you're going to win every time. Whatever it is. It doesn't really matter what it is.
I was about to say, I think that applies to absolutely everything.
It does.
It's every person that I've talked to about the journey of an entrepreneur says the same thing. Success leaves clues. It's just there's certain people that are going to listen to them and there's certain people that aren't.
I used to like watch Gary Vee videos and like, you know, oh, you got to take the L and like you're going to lose, you're going to suck at things a lot and you're going to, and like I was like, I don't want to do that. I just want to be good at it. You know, like I'd like to make all the money now. But I didn't realize that it just really is a part of the process of becoming more experienced at anything. Look, we take L's every day. Like NutraMedia is a pretty well set up business where we've got, when everyone comes in and they're working, like we're making money. Like it's a money printing machine. It's pretty dang good at it. As long as we're all sitting there working on things that we can build people for and doing it in a way that, and delivering those assets and those creatives in a way that's satisfactory to the client, right? But don't think that there's not like 100 L's that happen in that time. That process from getting into a day to the end of day, there's like 100 things that can go wrong. And I have to be the target for that. You know, it's just a bunch of people throwing darts at TK and I got to either, or sometimes I just got to let them hit me. And then sometimes I just take that shit out and like bite it and say, whatever, let's fix it. Let's move on to the next one. So you just got to learn how to be that type of person. If you're not that type of person, then maybe you're not an entrepreneur, but like that's a part of it. And you do that for years. You never actually ever stop doing that. No matter how good and how rich you get, it doesn't stop coming. You never get above it. You just get better at it. You just get better at it. You kind of jaded. You get to a point where you feel indifferent about a lot of stuff, and the way that you interact with things in life, you kind of see different perspectives when you're a business owner. You see kind of how the money moves around it. And you're just like, yeah, well, that's bullshit, you know, with a lot of things. So you get pretty good at like arguing and negotiating with people about, you know, things when they're trying to, you know,
bamboozle.
Exactly. Things like that. So you get kind of hardened to stuff like that.
You get thicker skin, all of it. Yeah,
but that doesn't mean it makes you, you know, anyone could be a good person if they want to be, you know. Kindness is free. You just got to be kind to people. But you do get a little bit more savvy to like, you know, when somebody's trying to take advantage of you, things like that. It's just kind of a part of the gig, especially in the world that I live in. It's just really super ultra abrasive and super competitive. But I like competition. You know, I can tell. I live for that shit. I can tell, so do I. Yeah, you know, it's not about beating someone, it's more about like beating myself the day before. That's what it's more about. Absolutely, and I completely agree with that. It's crazy when you say that you love competition. A lot of the things I speak about on my social media, you know, it's how do I put this? I'm not saying I don't have a kind heart, but because I do. I know you do. You're one of the kindest people I know. The things that motivate me, the things that inspire me, I'm the type of dude who moves from seeing something like David Goggins. You know, that hard nose, just run through a wall. That type of inspiration is what inspires me. Competing with yourself is absolutely what gets me going. Get you twerked up, get you fired up. Yeah, me too. I like that. My wife's completely different. Like my wife is opposite. When she hears stuff like that, she's like, that sounds uncomfortable. Yeah, everyone want to be like that. And I'm like, just some people are wired different, babe. I don't know what else to tell you. And and I'm one of those crazy people that are, you know, I'm not David Goggins crazy, but I'm David Goggins crazy in my little world. Right. I go harder than anyone in your world. And that's why there's NutraMedia. There's no one doing what we're doing. And there's people starting to pop up trying to start doing what we're doing. And I'm like, good luck. Good luck. Good luck. I support you. I actually want to see you come into this because I need you. Like, I need you. I need to eat. Like, I need to compete with you. So, like, I want to see him come in. So I got healthy competition. Yeah, for sure. Like, I love it. So we kind of dominate this weird little world right now. NutraMedia is like the thing that does what we do in this small little industry. I mean, it's several billions of dollars, but it's still a small industry. Right. And we kind of like dominate this one little niche of it. But yeah, when people start seeing our success, they want to kind of replicate that. And to me, that's flattering, A. And two, it's like, come on with it. Like, let's see what you got. And like, that makes all of us better. Because now we can iron sharpens iron. Our designers are going to get better. They're going to see what someone else is making for someone else. I'm like, man, that was cool. I'm like, that was
capitalism,
cool.
baby.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Like, there's a lot of things, you know, philosophically that I'm about, you know, from capitalists and socialistic ideologies. But I definitely I think that free market and good business always innovates.
Yeah,
I truly believe in that.
Yeah, I mean, America has its issues, but we are one of the most innovative countries to ever exist. But just to take this to a different direction, and we're about to close up here in a second. I'm curious, are you afraid of AI taking over in your space?
No, not really. We actually use a lot of AI.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a tool. You know, if you don't fear it and you can find a way, I mean, I think it's really cool, personally. I think it's awesome. What we do is kind of so highly refined and specialized. Yeah, AI can probably generate a label, but AI can't probably generate a compliance supplement facts panel. AI probably, yet. But AI also doesn't have a social reputation. You know, AI doesn't know different distributors. AI doesn't know. There's not the human element about what we do. When people look at what we do, they see the artistic part a lot, and that's what kind of people attach to because it's what you see. And that's where I started, obviously making all these designs and stuff. But my day-to-day these days has very little to do with me actually designing. It has to do with me talking to people. AI is not talking to people for me. AI is not selling. AI is not going to conventions and shaking hands and creating peer-to-peer relationships with people in which they trust what you're doing. And then you're going back and then you're building things for them that lets their business grow. AI is not doing that. AI is helping do some of that. It's a tool.
So AI is making your job easier
Just makes some things quicker. And honestly, it actually makes things quicker and less expensive for our clients. So AI is a great tool right now. I'm not worried about it at all.
Do you think there will ever become a point where AI could take over?
Oh yeah, probably.
But you're not worried about it?
No, we'll just find another way to use it as a tool. You know, we'll just leverage more products. You know, if it can make more labels faster, we'll just make more products faster as long as more people buy them. You know what I mean? AI can't make a protein powder. You can't physically make one. You could probably program all that stuff to kind of do it. But at the end of the day, you need humans to buy it. So there's always a human.
They can't eat it.
Yeah, there's always a human factor that we always control the machines at the end of the day. I mean, to a degree, it kind of seems like they control us. But that's all in your head, right?
At least the phones, right?
Yeah. But you just got to tell yourself, you got to set boundaries for yourself when it comes to things like that. So yeah, we use AI for a lot of stuff, and I think it's a great tool, and maybe it will overcome graphic designers one day. But if it ever overcomes graphic designers, I think we have worse problems than that. If AI can overcome graphic designers and put me out of a job, it's putting everyone else out of a job too simultaneously.
I mean, it'll probably put me out of a job.
That's what I mean. It's probably ultra problematic in the long run. But it's kind of already in motion, and it's probably actually a lot further developed than we understand. And we're actually way behind on it already.
In terms of where AI actually is?
Of our understanding of where AI is, yeah. It's indexing so much so fast right now and compounding so quickly that it's done. The domino already fell. It's already way gone.
Right.
Yeah, so there's really no stopping it. So it's either you kind of find a way to coexist with it.
Exactly.
Or it will just eat you. And I see that in a lot of older people, for example, my parents. They have not gotten with this new age of technology. They just figured they're old enough to not give a shit about it anymore, which you kind of envy that sometimes in people, right? But also, that kind of time stands still for them too, to a certain degree. So, they I don't know. that's a weird subject to get on, but like,
Yeah, but I mean, I think a lot of people in their older age that kind of happens.
yeah, they stop caring. But I never want to be a type of person where the world like moves on from.
Right.
Like that's something I fear. If I fear anything, like I don't want the world to move on from me because I just decided that I can't do it anymore because it's just all too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? In that case,
do you consider yourself a learner?
Yeah, you just gave up if you do that. You gave up. You said, I'm going to stop learning now. I'm going to stop improving now. And then like, what's the point after that?
Listen, as long as you're always learning, you always stay young.
That's true.
You always stay, if you're always staying curious, you always stay young.
That's right. Yeah, you know, you're never as smart as you think you are.
No, absolutely not. Well, it's been nice talking to you, TK.
Thank you.
I actually have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
First question is, where can everybody find you online?
At NutraMedia on Instagram. That's probably our largest social media. We don't have a very large social media following. It's weird because like it doesn't really matter because with my sub 1,000 followers, I can still like make $1 million off that. That's wild, huh?
I think I saw a post actually of you talking about how your business is either you've encroached on $1 million business or you are at $1 million business.
Yeah, we're going to be encroaching on $1 million at 2 years now. But with our main form of marketing being through Instagram, and we have like 900 followers. But every one of the people that follow me like owns big companies. So like it's just all about aiming small and missing small with your core audience.
Listen, if I had 900 of those people in a room, that'd still be pretty intimidating.
Like 2 of them you'd be like the most wealthiest people you've ever met in your life. Just 2 of them. Think of 900 of them. It's wild, like how some of these people are very influential that follow me. That I'm like, that's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that like somebody would watch my story when I know that they have like $1 billion company that they run. I'm like, wow, that's wild. But they watch me every single day, and sometimes they, like DM me, yo, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
right, that's awesome.
Yeah, you should hire us.
Awesome. So Instagram is your main platform.
Yeah.
Last question. What is the impact that you want to have on the world?
My impact, I would say mine's kind of selfish. I don't see myself as like a shepherd of the planet. I don't think TK is going to change the world. But what I can do is I can be a good father. I can be a good husband. I can be a good manager and business owner of the people at NutraMedia and the people that work at Core Culture. I can affect their lives. I can help them prosper. I can help them, I want them to be a little uncomfortable. I want to be that thing that makes them a little uncomfortable so they can learn what discomfort is, so they can learn how to be self-reliant on themselves. So if I want to impact on the world, I just want to influence the people around me in a positive way that can help make them better and grow so that they can survive. They can learn how to survive.
You know how you change the world, right?
Like one person at a time. Yeah. I guess.
It's been good, TK. I love that.
Yeah, bro.
That's amazing, man.
Thank you.
It's been good. I appreciate you. Go ahead and follow him at NutraMedia on Instagram. We're out.
The Sacred Joelist Podcast.